And replace him with what? What genius is waiting in the wings that is going to satisfy you? Just another flawed human you will claw at the eyes of. Every vulgar attack on a politician reduces the chance of a skilled and capable person becoming the politician we need. As long as we expect the unachievable from politicians and rail against them for inevitably failing, we send the better people into the private sector, weakening our nation. It's not often a comment back to one of my videos sets me up nicely for another, but here we are. That was a comment back to my last video where I spoke about Harvey's story and the lack of accountability over his premature death. And this was one absolute Egypt's hot take. You want to know what I'd replace Simon Harris with? It's really not difficult. A human being capable of empathy and compassion. A human being that doesn't lie to children and their desperate families just to score political points. A human being who picks up the phone to offer condolences to the family of a child who he ignored and who died on his watch before being shamed into it. Is that too much to ask? Apparently so, at least according to Fine Gael apologists. That whole comment is a prime example of blue shirt bullshit. Simon Harris's actions have been nothing short of reprehensible, and yet this comment frames him simply as a flawed human that I am unfairly taking issue with. That video, by the way, I used the bleep button once. It must be a record for me, to be honest. Yet that's all it takes to be labelled vulgar, because that's the Fine Gael way, isn't it? Deflect, deflect. Simon Harris is not skilled and he is not capable. He lied point blank to desperate children and their families. He said in the Dáil that his team would meet with Harvey's parents, and that meeting still has not happened. We expect the unachievable, do we? No one forced Simon Harris into making that promise that no child would wait longer than 4 months. No, he made that promise to feather his cap and is now desperately trying to distance himself from it, expecting the unachievable. 4 months is achievable. What other first world country has the problems we have with our spinal surgeries? Go on, give me a name, give me examples that are on a par with what we are seeing here in Ireland. That promise was nothing more than a political soundbite to make Simon Harris look caring and full of action. Who would I replace him with? The exact opposite. How about any of the parents and advocates who spoke at the March for Harvey, the March for Justice, on Saturday 23rd of August? Unlike the many politicians labelled as such, those parents and advocates actually are decent people, and that's an understatement. They could easily insulate themselves and focus solely on their own family's struggles, but they don't. They stand up for every other family and those that can't speak for themselves. And unlike Simon Harris and his claims about why he got into politics, those parents and advocates don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk. Every single day they walk the walk and fight the good fight. That's what I'd replace Simon Harris and his ilk with. If Simon Harris had actually listened to those parents and advocacy groups, if he had actually done more than just make an empty promise, that 4-month time frame could have been achieved. It is not impossible. Again, no other first world country has the issues that we have. Why is that? You want to know why? It's very simple. Because Fine Gael couldn't give a That's why. If Simon Harris had actually done the hard work that was needed to make that promise a reality, he'd be hailed as a hero. He'd be looked upon as a politician who actually cares when he says he does. If he actually followed through on his promise, Harvey might still be alive today and his family could be planning for a brighter future. If he followed through on his promise, no child would be needlessly suffering. No families would have to go public to shame those in power into action. Or let's be real here, shame them into further ignoring the issues because that's all they know how to do. How many times do we need to learn the lesson that those in Fine Gael and their supporters don't care about children, that they don't care about people with disabilities, that they don't care about carers before it finally sinks in? They don't care about you or your children. You want proof? Simon Harris is still An Tánaiste and still leader of Fine Gael. Simon Harris has has the backing of his party. Minister for Finance Paschal Donoghue, who I spoke about in my last video, claims that Simon Harris did all he could in terms of engaging with the Department of Health, in terms of engaging with the HSE. We have other senior figures saying how they feel sorry for him and feel he's doing too much, and that he's a very decent guy and is working his ass off. They say he's had a shocking summer. The lack of all self-awareness is off the bloody charts, and you're left wondering just what the hell is wrong with those in Fine Gael. Like, genuinely, what the is wrong with them? A shocking summer. No, he's reaping what he has sown. A shocking summer is a family burying their child due to a negligent health service while those responsible face no accountability. That's shocking. Not a politician dealing with the inevitable backlash brought on by his own uncaring incompetence. Perhaps, and I'm just guessing here, but perhaps posting a selfie at an Oasis concert while a family grieves and a nation despairs and pulls their hair out at the cruel and callous indifference shown to them by those in power is not a good look, you absolute ghouls. And maybe creating an echo chamber for yourself online by blocking anyone and everyone who dares criticise and point out your failures just shows you up as a thin-skinned coward and is also not a good look. In fact, it's incredibly worrying and dangerous that such a high-ranking politician feels they can just block the electorate online and ignore the people he is supposed to represent. Just what is it about Fine Gael? What is wrong with them? A child has died. Many more are still suffering, still becoming inoperable, still being ignored, and Fine Gael are more f***ing worried about poor Simon Harris and how his shocking summer might affect the party's chances at the presidency. That's what they're worried about, winning a election. No thought for the family at the heart of this issue. No, sure, they don't even know their names, the absolute scumbags. And yes, in my honest opinion, they are scumbags. Enterprise Minister Peter Burke expressed his support for Simon Harris, saying that he supports An Tánaiste, but that we have to be very much aware that we have a family grieving here. Now, before you start thinking to yourself, well, here we go, at least someone in Fine Gael remembers those at the heart of the issue, here's what he said. I know as a father of 2 young children, it would be incomprehensible to lose one of them, and to see what the family are going through now, Stephen and Geraldine. It is incredible how fair they've been, I have to say. Stephen and Geraldine. Stephen and Geraldine. Who the is Geraldine? Trying to look compassionate, trying to personalise it, and he can't even get Harvey's mam's name right. Jesus wept. Her name is Gillian, you simpleton. At least give her the respect of learning her name, you callous moron. Oh no, I better tone down the vulgarity and I should stop clawing the eyes out of decent politicians. You know, the decent sort of flawed human beings who care more about themselves and their gravy trains and who can't be bothered to remember the names of the people they have failed in the most horrific of ways. But that's Fine Gael all over. Look at Minister for Health Jennifer Carroll MacNeill, who finally surfaced to give a speech because nothing gets a Gaeler out of hiding quicker than a call to their ego. At her speech at Bail na Blah, she decided to dedicate most of her speech to talking about things far outside her brief as Minister for Health. Things like our sovereignty and our triple lock. She ended by finally giving a fleeting thought to Harvey and his parents, and you'd be forgiven for having a bad taste in your mouth after her paltry words on the subject. There is very much a feeling that she used Harvey to score political points against her party leader Simon Harris, because that's what a good Fine Gaeler does. They prioritise themselves and their career progression above all else. Her brief is the Department of Health, and if spinal surgeries was the only issue, you might excuse her nonsense as naivety. But no, 9 in 10 children don't get their assessment of need within the legal time frame of 6 months, and Breast Check has missed its screening targets for the 2nd year in a row. Not not to mention the ever-expanding black hole of taxpayer money and patience that is the National Children's Hospital that is still not open. And that's just 3 issues. There are plenty more. But no, she's content with all of that and would rather try her hand at the dignified leader who can speak on all things with no real regard for any, because that's what Fine Gael is full of. Vacuous, self-centered egomaniacs who love the sound of their own voice. She was finally asked about spinal surgeries and that promise made by Simon Harris on Today FM, where she said actually the targets are 3 months, but that not every child needs surgery within 4 months, and then went on to explain how they might need traction or just need to grow. Sweet merciful Jesus, are we expecting the unachievable here too, in expecting the Minister for Health to understand that when a clinician says a child needs surgery, they need surgery now, and not a wait and see approach? It is genuinely disturbing that a minister can spout such absolute nonsense and be led away with it. In any other walk of life, you'd lose your job over having such a poor grasp of your brief. But no, not in Irish politics, and definitely not in Fine Gael. She's following Simon Harris to a T, isn't she? Both empty-headed, both valuing their careers beyond all else. I'm sure she'll make a great leader of Fine Gael one day, because they are the traits that Fine Gael value. Want more proof that they only care about themselves? Heather Humphreys is their presidential candidate in waiting. The same Heather Humphreys who, as Minister for Social Protection, oversaw the publication of a green paper on disability reform, whereby those in receipt of the paltry and inadequate disability allowance would have to jump through more hoops to prove not to the medical professionals who already signed off on their disability application and their inability to work, but to prove instead to the number crunchers at the Department of Social Welfare just how disabled they are, to justify that paltry payment and to justify their inability to work. She only dropped this punitive, dehumanising proposal after severe backlash. But that is the Fine Gael MO right there. They don't care about you or your kids. And that's why I find the commentary that Simon Harris's reputation might hamper Heather Humphreys' chance at the presidency, that her run might end up being a poll on Simon Harris, utterly ridiculous. Why? Why would his performance hamper her chances? They are 2 peas in a pod cut from the same cloth. They are the poster children of Fine Gael values. If anything, her candidacy will be a poll on whether you agree with those Fine Gael values that they have so clearly spelled out for us all over their time in government. They don't care about children, they don't care about people with disabilities, and they don't care about carers. They don't care about homelessness, they don't care about anything that doesn't make money. It's that simple. They are the epitome of the I'm alright Jack attitudes that are becoming so prevalent in this country. And at this point, honestly, it has to be said, f*** Fine Gael and f*** anyone who supports them. It really is that simple. They don't care about children suffering. They don't care about children dying. They don't care. So what do you think of them? Is there any redeeming qualities about Fine Gael? Do you think I'm being too harsh on them, and in particular Simon Harris? Or do you agree that they are all heartless ghouls who have no business representing the Irish electorate? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified of new content. If you want to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee or a super thanks, which is greatly appreciated, and a huge thank you to those of you that already have. You can also follow me on Twitter. Until next time, slán go fóill.